Hi, welcome all. This is Ninod from Procurement Technology Office. So today we are going to see demo on microservice toolkit for Java. It's a toolkit that helps developer to build microservice faster, deploy it to production. So basically they start an ideation at the start of the sprint and can take it to production maybe in 1 or 2 sprints. So framework does a lot of heavy lifting. So we'll see what that means. So basically what this demo I intend to keep is at a very high level. There are some supporting demos you can look to get dive into detailed technicals of how things are done. But this is at pretty high level to demonstrate the core competency of this project, okay, which is microservice toolkit for Java. Now, first thing a developer has to do is he has to take an archetype from GitHub, install it onto his local, and then generate project using any means he want. In this case, I have done all that prerequisite already done. So what basically I will do is I will go to my command prompt and create a project. In this case, the name of the project is product service -1.4. Basically, as soon as I do this, it gets into the process of creating a microservice for me, and then it gets into interactive mode where it starts collecting some default information from me. For me, all the default information looks okay, and then I say yes, please go ahead. So once this is done, what it has done is it has created a microservice project for me based on the archetype that I have installed. And then I go about deploying this to the cloud. So it is much easier to create the initial base package for microservice, and developer can start adding his code and functionality into the project. But the complete scaffolding is already done for him. Okay. Now, what are the things that this toolkit does? Let's see that. Now, a developer basically, once this process is done, may implement his functional code and will push it to the cloud. I have already taken care of that, and we have already pushed it some minutes ago. So if you see product service 1.4, we have pushed like 24 minutes ago. Once the code is pushed, and this is our own cloud, okay, this is our cloud running on our own hardware, I'm connected on VPN, so I can push this code. So once this goes in, one of the primary thing that happens is generation of your reports. This report basically provides health of your microservice. So for example, in this case, what it's trying to say is, hey, the microservice that you pushed, the feature looks good. The feature is completely passed. All the scenarios in the feature have passed. So there are 4 scenarios, and all the 4 scenarios have passed. There are around 12 steps in the microservice, and all the 12 steps have passed. The actual life scenario may not be something like this, but in this case, everything is passed. Okay, so this is a lot of this provides a great view into what is happening with your microservice, and people know about, the team knows about health of their deliverable, and they get a lot of confidence when they want to take it to production. Second thing that happens is microservice go and registers with Eureka. So developer has just accepted the default configuration, and framework automatically registers with Eureka. So you can see product service 1.4 got registered. So this is Eureka is our registry server. So next thing that will happen is it creates API documentation, and we are using Swagger. Again, in this case, what has happened is developer has not done anything to create this UI. And what is this UI? This UI is basically documents, okay, how the API is going to work. So if one team want to communicate with other team, they don't depend on traditional documentation. Instead, they can open this UI, and this UI gives a lot of capability. For example, they can see a microservice, they can try it out here. They can see, okay, what type of request is expects, what is the response, what is the request header I need to send. So it is going away from the basic traditional documentation that may still act as a supplement, but the core is you get runtime stuff. You can share this URL, people can see, play with it, and interact in a much nice way. This is all auto-generated, so developer don't again need to do anything. It is automatically done for him. Now, another thing that it comes accompanied with is a Histrix dashboard. So Histrix basically is a dashboard that says, okay, how many of your services are going through the closed circuit. And if there is any issue, it opens a circuit and calls a fallback URL, right? So here what happens is, if let us say I'm calling this, right? And if I look at my Histrix dashboard, you see the count has increased here, right? So for example, if I go to Swagger UI again and maybe try it out, I can see my counts getting affected here, right? So basically developer gets a clear view of, okay, how his services are doing in actual production. This is another UI that really helps them to get a better feel of stuff that is working in production. Now, once this is done, the next step is we are slightly going towards health and monitoring, right? We also want to make sure real production, all health, all starts, everything looks good. Again, for this, developer don't need to do anything. Microservice stack automatically starts sending events, and from that perspective, this microservice, the Spring Boot admin tool, starts capturing all that health check metrics and start depicting it. So if I go here and click on the details, you can see I can pretty much get all the details about health of it, right? For example, this is pulling a lot of information also from Eureka. So how many services are registered with Eureka? What is my disk space? What is the memory? What is total memory? What is the heap memory? What is my initial heap that I have configured? Maximum heap I have configured. Some configuration about the JVM that I have. Garbage collection configuration. So this is providing real insight into most of the thing a DevOps team basically will need to find health, right, of how stuff is working. You can see your JMX beans all configured here. You can see your threads. You can take a dump from here. You can see the trace. So this is pretty effective in going through a lot of details about it. Now look at this, like you have all your microservices getting registered, you have health of everything. So you can see, for example, one of the services is down, right? Now I can definitely go ahead, click on the detail of it, and then try to figure out why this is down. So I can click on the health, and if I see the status is down, and I know it very well because if you see this authentication failed because I have not provided my username and password into this code, which is trying to connect to my SMTP, that is my mail server, right? I have not given that. So if I give that right, I don't want to put my username and password here. But in actual production, you see how easy it is to just look into that and figure out the defects, right? And it becomes really handy for a developer or a DevOps engineer to use this. One other thing that we have added is, so you saw like we had Cucumber reports that showed all the health when you were deploying. It registered with Eureka. It provided API documentation, which at runtime developer don't need to do anything. It started. It also has a Histrix dashboard. Then it has Spring Boot admin integration, so you can diagnose the issues deeper. One more other thing that we have is something called as a microservice dashboard. Now this is very, very important. When a microservice gets into the ecosystem, microservice by its design, right? It's based on a business context, right? And you may have many microservices in an organization, each handled by different teams and each communicate, right? Now it is very important when microservice gets into this ecosystem, you know what type of system it is communicating with and what are the various REST, for example, in this case, it's exposing. So if I try to look at product service 1.4, it is trying to give REST URLs like /product, search by ID and all. That is what it's exposing, and consumer can consume from here this microservice. At the same time, it is also consuming the resource like DB. If I look at some other services like account service, it is exposing /name, so give me name of the account. At the same time, it is consuming something like RabbitMQ and MongoDB, right? So this becomes very handy for a team to understand the total picture, right? So what framework does is for all this thing, microservice toolkit is sending some sort of an event, or it may be registered with Eureka, and this tool may be pulling the information from Eureka. But in a whole, you get all this ecosystem. So not only microservice alone is important, but the total ecosystem is important, right? So the framework that we have built is the microservice itself as an archetype from which we generate microservice, as well as the surrounding ecosystem, right? So this is one more tool that comes along with that. So once you are done with this, it may happen that, let us say, now you know how your microservice ecosystem looks. You can monitor Histrix. You can look at the API documentation. You can register with Eureka. You can see the Cucumber report, which provides health of the microservice itself. That is during the build and deploy, whether it has all the functional test cases have passed. After that, let us say one microservice can go and communicate with another microservices, right? Now that's a traditional way the design will work, right? It may happen that your microservice is working fine, but some other team or some microservice that is external or wherever, it's failing. But you need to immediately find the issue, right, in production if something like that happens. And there where Zipkin helps us. So Zipkin is basically a tracing tool, and the framework, the microservice toolkit for Java, automatically has an integration with Zipkin. So now what will happen is, as the microservice is deployed, you stream the trace information to Zipkin server, and Zipkin server starts managing the trace. Okay, so you know if one microservice which is consuming other microservice, if it is failing, where the bottleneck is. So for example, if I want to select and say find trace and try to go deep into that, so when I click on that, I can go nesting here. In my case, there is only one. So let me see if I can just click on find trace. Let me get the shortest first. Okay, so basically what will happen is when I click on a microservice, it gives me complete trace. In my case, it is not deep, but if you have a pretty detailed one, you can see the complete trace coming in here, right? So this is the other tool that we have integrated. One more development that we are doing here is this dashboard, right? So this is a unified dashboard. So we felt that as we are providing all this feature and functionality, it will be great to start bringing all that into a unified dashboard. So developer has all these features, but it all compact into one nice dashboard. So now this is a new dashboard. Hopefully it is nearly complete. And what you can see is all the URLs that you saw earlier now just have one dashboard. So developer just logs into this and he can view either microservice dashboard or Spring Boot admin or Zipkin, everything into this. So this is a high level view. So we deployed the microservices. Microservice starts communicating with this various systems, and it's visualized as a whole, right? As a whole architecture ecosystem. This archetype is also cloud independent, cloud neutral, so there is no vendor locking. So for example, the same project I have also deployed into Bluemix. So Bluemix is another Cloud Foundry instance where Procurement has an account. I have logged into that and we have pushed that. So this is all the various type of servers like configuration server or authentication server or gateway, everything running here. We have also deployed microservice which is running, which is based on the same template. And you can see I can again use a similar Swagger UI got generated. So the idea of showing Bluemix was to emphasize the point that it is cloud independent, right? So I can I have option of pushing it to any Cloud Foundry instance like Pivotal or Bluemix or any Cloud Foundry instance, or any cloud that has a Dockerized support, right? Because it can build Dockerize and instance, and I can push to whichever cloud. So nearly most of the cloud today have Dockerization, container support, right? So I think, yeah, so this is a high level capture of stuff. I hope you got some good understanding, and this is what we discussed in short, right? Pulling the data from configuration server, register with Eureka, start sending message to Zipkins, start message sending to a log server, Jenkins build it and gave you Cucumber report, it automatically generated Swagger UI, all the test cases were taken from the feature file that we had, and it provided a nice full view dashboard that we saw, right? So developer focused on this and rest all automatically happened more or less, right? So that is what the core of this framework is. There are other videos, supporting videos for developers who are really interested to dig deep. I can share that, but hope it gave you a little bit more detail of what we were trying to achieve. This is, I know we have done some great progress, and I think we are still adding a lot of new features, and we'll be sharing periodically as and when we get time. Thanks all for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye. Take care.